all for thank you all for joining the INCOSE Washington Metropolitan Area Chapter meeting. If you are new to our meeting, please put a little note in the chat. Let us know who you are, who you work for, if you're working, a little bit about yourself to introduce yourself to the rest of us. We are delighted that you're here with us. Just a few housekeeping items. If you would, please put your phone on mute unless you are speaking to us. Do we have any new folks online? If so,
Yeah,
you
we
can.
got one.
Yep.
A really good friend of mine, Dr. Roy Creasy from Booz Allen. He's on. He's new to the chapter.
Well, hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Great. So glad you're here. So we'll go ahead and get started. I just went over a couple of the housekeeping items. Do check in, put a little bit about yourself in the chat, mute your phones, and please use the chat as a way of networking to get to know one another. All right, so this evening, I am the president. I'm so fortunate, so blessed to be the president of this chapter. I want to also introduce you to a couple of new board members this evening. The committee chairs will be reporting out as we go forward in our meeting. We are anxious to hear a presentation from David Long on leadership lessons for system engineers, plus a few insights into the INCOSE Technical Leadership Institute, otherwise known as TLI. So, Dr. Rye, are you on the line?
I'm on the line.
He is our new ambassador chair. I'm so excited to have you join our board. Looking forward to working with you. Would you like to share a few words?
Sure, it's such an honor to join this role and this organization, And I have three good reasons to be excited about. The first one is, of course, what I am today here. It has a lot to do with my education and being an engineer and practicing it, right? And remaining a lifelong learner and also system thinker. I think the second reason is time has come for me to give back to the community through the organizations such as INCOSE WMA. And the third is, as we go through this journey, I am truly excited to share, inform, and educate people out there about, this INCOSE WMA and what we do, and its benefits and that's, things like that, just so we continue to help people, individuals out there, both professionally and how they continue to, like we do today, help towards the community, sort of bidding the tours down the road, right? As we help them be successful in their careers. So those are the three reasons I'm quite excited and join this team. So look forward to working with you all.
Yes. And Tika has also worked with us in terms of our elections and nominations committee last year, did a phenomenal job. So I know you will bring over that same energy and attention to detail with regards to being the ambassador chair. So I'm looking so forward to working with you. And then next, we have Dr. Mary Burley, who is joining us as the membership chair this year. Our former chair had another board that she is a part of that was competing with this meeting. So we now have a new membership chair. And Dr. Mary Burley, if you're online, please share a few words. Maybe she's not online. All right. Well, as you can see here, Mary Burley works for the MITRE Corporation. In fact, she and I have worked together for about 15 plus years at MITRE. She has led several projects with regards to test and evaluation. She is certified as a safe program consultant, skilled agile. She is also a member of the International Test and Evaluation Association, where she serves on the scholarship committee. And so she is also eager to get involved with this board and with this chapter. She's been a part of the chapter for a long while, but now she is going to fill in as the membership chair. So we're looking forward to what she will bring to the table. All right. So in terms of what I plan to share with you this evening, I just shared with you the new board members. I have also reached out to each of these three universities to initiate conversations and to get the ball rolling with regards to creating student chapters to engage their system engineer students, their engineering students. I continue to work with the Circle Award Working Group. We have been working diligently on this huge spreadsheet where we capture all of the items that have points associated where we work towards the Circle Award, the different levels of the Circle Awards. I am also continuing to collaborate with Texas chapter and INCOSE chapter to bring to you SEP certification prep courses. We are anticipating that they will be starting in the second quarter. So look for emails and information about that if you're considering a SEP certification like I am. Also collaborating with other INCOSE chapters. We have members on the board who have reached out to chapters across the U.S. as well as international INCOSE chapters. So we are looking forward to collaborating with other chapters as well. And then, of course, we're all volunteers. We're all here to do outreach and to work across companies, across state lines, Maryland, Virginia, and DC. So we are going to be engaging with outreach going forward this year. So I'm looking forward to that. So for those of you that may be new to our chapter, or just to remind others, this is our 2025 board members and also our student chapter, our current student chapter faculty list here so that you can see who the members are. And each division that we have set up so far, they also have a board of their own, student board. So this is the one for George Mason University. We also have a student chapter at Virginia Tech, and as well as George Washington University. So you will be hearing from these three student chapters. Is there anyone on the call from any one of our three student chapters? You'd like to come off mute and say hello?
Hi, my name is James. I'm the Vice President from Virginia Tech Student Chapter.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you for
Yeah.
joining.
Sure, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. All right. Any others? All right. We would also like to take the time to welcome the new members that joined last month. Here they are listed here, and also the companies, organizations that they work for. So if you see someone at a company that you work for, or if you see someone that you know here, give a shout out. If anyone is here that's on this list, feel free to put that in the chat. We'd love to say hello. We have also received word that we have some of our chapter members that have earned SEP certifications. The ones that are in bold text, you also see this information on our website. But John Earhart received the ESEP. Then we have two new CSEP recipients, Richard Harmon and James Garipa. I hope I'm not messing up any names. And then there are several here. I won't read all the names for the ASEP, but they are the ones here in bold text below. So a round of applause for all of the SEP certified folks that are in our chapters, that are continuing to educate themselves and move their careers forward. All right. So here is the communications chair update. Paul, are you online?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So last month we were discussing about joining the working groups. I decided to throw together a slide here. So when you log into your INCOSE account at www.incose.org, in the upper right corner will be your profile pic or icon. And if you select that, you can end up going into join a working group. There's currently 54 groups that are listed in that list. And you can join as many as you want or leave any that you're no longer interested in. And one of the great tools that these working groups use is the Microsoft Viva Engage, which you get access to via joining INCOSE. You have to realize that the account that you probably signed up with for INCOSE is your personal email or work email. But to use the Viva Engage account, you would be provisioned an @incose.org ID. And that's the ID that you would need to use to log into the Viva Engage to look at the streams. Both the chapters and the working groups use this to do their communications, among other tools. So there'll be a little more details in the next newsletter related to this. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I did see a hand. Tika, did you have your hand raised?
It was more of a clap, actually. I meant to, before the celebration of the recipient of the certification.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So next we'll move on to the chapter newsletter editor, Nalini. Over to you.
Hello. All right, so we're a bit behind on the timeline that we had originally planned for. I'm still in the process of gathering the input, so if you have anything to contribute, please do send it our way. Communicate newsletter at incosewma.org. And so we'll continue to push towards the publication date. But, could slip a little, but we'll definitely get this out this month. And so
Okay.
that's where we are.
And I know that I'm also on that list to provide you with some information, and I will do so this evening.
All right, thank you.
All right. And so we're all very excited to see the new newsletter. It's sleek and interactive so that folks can be able to take a snapshot in terms of looking at different bits of information, and then you can click on links to take you to a full article. So I'm looking forward to that. All right. And so in terms of our upcoming program meetings, I'm not sure, Ruchira, are you online? She is our
Good
program
evening.
chair.
Good evening, Luanda. Good evening, everyone. Yes, I'm online.
Oh.
Hi. So with the program meetings for 2025, we have David Long, our esteemed longtime colleague, previous president for the INCOSE WMA chapter, presenting today, as you can see, and he's probably briefly even spoken. For April, we have John Connolly, who will be speaking on the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. Then we have Christopher Hoffman for this, who will speak on CBOC. And then in June, we will have Jimmy McIver and some other members from his team speaking on tech ops and various other working groups within INCOSE and the various topics related to that. But since those things are a little out in terms of timeline, we don't really have what particular topics they would be speaking to. So more to come. Also, another thing, and I think Luanda, you might want to speak to that, is about we transitioning from being purely virtual to moving towards a hybrid model, and having our meetings online as well as in person, kind of reverting back to an old model pre-COVID. And so with that, this is our presentation roster up until June. We do take a break in July and August, so that's something to be mindful of. And then we resume back in September. So with that resume, we would really like to extend an invitation to anyone who is interested and thinks has topics or would like to hear about specific topics and is willing to and available to present at our chapter meeting. Please reach out to programs@incosewma.org, and let's connect and make sure we can get you on the roster as well. And with that, I'll open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? All right, hearing none. Luanda, I'll turn it over to you if you want to speak a little bit about the hybrid approach.
Yes. So I think, thank you so much, Ruchira, for bringing us up to date with the upcoming program meetings that are secured for the first half of the year. And so with regards to the locations, we are and have been trying to kind of gradually move back to meeting in person. And so we are looking for a location. We think we may have one. We're just trying to get the I's dotted and T's crossed to be able to offer hybrid meetings so that we can meet in person for those that can or are able to do so. And then also virtual, so that people who are not able to come together at the meetings in person, they'll still be able to partake in the meetings, in our monthly meetings. So more to come on that as we solidify those details. All right. So next we have our event for this first quarter that is planned for March 29th. And I believe our event chair is not able to make it. I'm trying to recall. I think that is the information I received via email. Kathleen, are you on?
Hi, Dr. Studevant. Yes, I'm online.
Okay, good.
So we have plenty of space left for this upcoming event. I hope you're able to join us. It's going to be a really neat behind the scenes backstage tour of Wolf Trap. You may have seen Wolf Trap recently released their upcoming summer program. So before you spend an evening enjoying some music, come take a look at what the artists see behind the scenes as they're preparing to go on stage. We'll learn about the systems involved at the Performing Arts Center. So it promises to be a great tour. Following the tour, we'll be meeting up at Ship Garden in McLean for some refreshments afterwards. I'll paste the link to the Google form in the chat, and I hope you can join us.
Thank you. Sounds exciting.
And I'm also looking for individuals interested in joining the event committee. If you'd like to help plan an event or have any ideas for in-person gatherings, tours, talks, etc., please let me know. And you can reach me at this email address. Thanks. Back to you, Dr. Studevant.
All right. Thank you so much. Kathleen does an excellent job in taking care of scheduling our events. They're always exciting. All right. So we will move forward now to our collaboration with PMI. So Dr. Sue, are you online?
I am, and thank you so very much, Madam President. I'd like to talk a little about this evening about the two experiential learning initiatives that we initiated over at the PMI WDC. And so my second volunteer job is Vice President for Professional Development at PMI WDC. And we've been working towards putting together some hands-on training experiences for the membership. And I know that many of us in this chapter are also members of a PMI, WDC. And so this is an opportunity to let everybody know what's going on. And the two opportunities are a 4-day, 2-weekend workshop, and then also a community practice initiative program. Next slide, please. And so the custom PM class with Agile and Hybrid, and it will be a workshop. 4 days, the dates are shown over two weekends, Saturday and Sunday. It'll be an interactive course, combination of lecture and hands-on workshops. And what it'll do, you can read better than I. Essentially, it's an opportunity to take the PMBOK practices, have a discussion, and then go on and use them in a real project. And the project is a home remodeling project of different stuff for each of the days. And then the group will do a presentation. So it should be an interesting event. There'll be 28 PDUs that's available for the course. The class size is going to be limited to 15 participants. And it'll be somewhere in Crystal City. We think we have a place, but we want to knock it down, make sure. And there'll be this course is a customized course from a course that's taught by the instructor to defense corporations in the area. And the latest one was for Johns Hopkins, where they had a number of people attend. And so this is a good experience. If you're interested in doing something along that line, and you are a PMI WC member, I'll get some information out in terms of the details. And if not, you may want to join and partake in this. This is a pilot, and we're going to see what kind of traction it has. And if it becomes something that's worthwhile, we will present it next year. Next slide, please. The next one is the community practice program. This is a new initiative that we're going to prototype a couple of pilots, again, to see what the interest is. And so what is the community practice? Well, it's a learning strategy where the people who participate in it teach each other. And this particular slide, you can see how the community practice is different than other organizations with respect to working groups, project teams, and other organizations that you may have been familiar with. But essentially, it is a working group where the people that participate teach each other and they exchange information. Next slide, please. And so the three pieces of the community of practice is the domain, the general area of interest, the people who engage in it, and the practice. The actual members are actual practitioners. And the group will be led by a moderator who will help provide structure and facilitate learning and essentially establish the syllabus and work their way to the course ending. Again, this is a pilot. We have two that we're working. One is at advanced stages. It's the systems thinking and project management. And that will kick off sometime in the April timeframe. And the second one is program manager engineer collaboration. And that's sort of under development. So I have a colleague over at PMI WDC that wants to lead this effort. And I'm trying to direct him to doing this as a PM-SE collaboration, right? Just add the S in front of the E and see what happens there. And the domain will be led by moderators with both engineering and program management experience. And I think this would be a great COP for us as members of INCOSE to get involved with if you are also a member of PMI, remembering that the object from the PM-SE interaction working group has always been that we need to have better communications between PMs and systems engineers. And this is a way of doing that at the working group level at where the rubber meets the road, right? So we have two of the largest chapters in their area here, and we have a large population, and the time to do the interactive education is right here at our home base. And if you're interested in it, send me an email and I'll get you in touch. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. As always, Dr. Sue is a wealth of information, and his leadership that he's showing over at PMI, as well as what he has shared and shown here with WMA, is just phenomenal. So if you're interested in and part of PMI already, feel free to reach out to Dr. Sue and get involved. So I just noticed that Dr. Burley is on the call. We gave you a shout out, but just wanted to circle back in case you wanted to say a few words, Dr. Burley, about your new role.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Sorry that I was delayed in joining the meeting. I didn't realize the traffic was going to be as bad as it was this evening. But nonetheless, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be the new membership chair, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
There we go.
I had the same problem, Mary. Traffic was just horrible. But
Yeah,
we
it
all
was
turned into
terrible.
office. So I just wanted to say one thing before I turn the meeting over to our presenter for the hour, and that is with any of the committees that you see here, as soon as I click on the link here, all of them are in need of folks to assist them with their various areas, tutorial chair, membership chair, ambassador chair, event coordinator. We're all looking for additional folks to help out so that we can be successful as we try to help our new system engineers that are entering into their careers, as well as sharing information for those at mid-level and so forth. So feel free to reach out to any one of the chairs that you see listed here if there's something that you think that you can contribute. We greatly appreciate it. And so now for the main entree of the evening, we have Dr. Long, who is here with us. He is a wealth of information. I believe our programs chair has shared a little bit about Mr. Long. Are you on the call? Just want to make sure before I turn it over to you.
I'm here and all set, Lawanda.
Excellent, excellent. We're so glad to have you. And so with that, I will turn this over. I will let you share your screen.
All right.
All right.
David, this is Ruchira here. Thank you for joining us this evening. We would really love for you to introduce yourself. You can only do justice to your bio. We really wouldn't be able to. So it would be lovely for all our new members and old if you could introduce yourselves once, if you don't mind.
Sure. And thanks for that, as opposed to reading a bio. In my opinion, people never come to hear the bio. They come to hear the talk.
Right. I understand that. Yes, absolutely. That's why we're all here. But we would love to hear about you as well. It's been a while you joined us, so thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Dave Long, I appreciate the doctor, but to all the PhDs out there who've done the work, I'm not a doctor, so I won't claim that. I have over 30 years in systems engineering, and my track has really been twofold. One is I was the founder of Vitech Corporation, which was a systems-centered organization, the lead developer and responsible for the core software back in the days, and then Genesis. I left Vitech in 2022, and I've been independent since then. The other track is I've been involved with INCOSE since 1992, including time as a leader in the WMA chapter. Thank you to the leaders for all you do. It is a labor of love, but it is a labor. And then as service at the international level, previously as INCOSE president, currently on the board as the director for strategic integration, and also currently one of the coaches for the Technical Leadership Institute. So there's the dime story. I'm a systems engineer through and through. Good enough, for sure? All right.
That was perfect, David. Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. So let's get into the talk, because that's why we're here tonight, to talk. And as systems engineers, as we leverage our principles, we have the opportunity to make a unique and positive impact in our projects and in the greater world around us. But to maximize that impact requires that we look beyond the technical, which is where most of us were educated, where the comfort zone is for most of us. And we have to embrace the leadership. So tonight's talk is really a talk in two parts. The first part is about leadership lessons for systems engineers, including a few specific tactics that are particularly valuable for us. And so hopefully If you are into your leadership career, you'll find things here to resonate with. If you're early in your career, you'll find some ideas to lock onto. The second part of the talk then is insights into the INCOSE Technical Leadership Institute. You'll hear me refer to it as the TLI, which is a valuable INCOSE resource for those looking to advance their leadership journeys and to hone their leadership skills. A teaser for that, if as I talk about the Technical Leadership Institute, you find yourself interested, nominations remain open at this point for cohort 11, which is the next cohort. So if you're interested, there is still an early opportunity to get engaged this year. All right, so let's get rolling. And first, well, actually throughout, feel free to drop messages in chat. I'll try to keep an eye out over there for any questions in real time. We'll have time for Q&A at the end. But I've got a question for you to get started. When I talk about systems engineering and leadership, we often have a split audience. So I need to know who I'm speaking to. So can you raise your virtual hand if you are a systems engineer? Let me get a sense of who we've got here in the room. So Jada is a systems engineer. Here the hands are coming up. Okay, good. Number of hands coming up. All right, very good. And as I would expect, that's where most of us are. Okay, great. If you can go ahead and put your hands down. Let's see the other part of the audience, because when you talk about leadership, well, that can pull some leaders into the room. So please raise your hand if you're a leader. And let's see how many hands come up. This will help me understand who we're talking about today. All right, some more hands coming up. Good. All right. So keep putting the hands up or take them down. It's okay. For those who have been around me a little bit, you may recognize that that's a trick question, because I would actually say that all systems engineers are leaders. Now, we may not be leaders by position. We may not be leaders by title. We largely don't lead from the front, but we absolutely do lead via the middle of the pack, which is actually one of the hardest places to lead. So even if you don't consider yourself a leader, even if you don't have leader or manager in your role title, I hate to tell you, if you are a systems engineer, you are a leader. So hopefully there are some points here that are useful for you. So when I talk about systems engineering, I always like to talk about us as the technical connective tissue that binds the project team together. We help set the context, we help define the pieces, we help to define the interfaces, we connect the parts, we connect the players, we drive the big picture understanding. And this is really our comfort zone sitting in the technical space, particularly at the product level. In 2014, INCOSE published Systems Engineering Vision 2025, not the current version 2035, but this was the previous version, SE Vision 2025. And in that, we framed changes and challenges in the world around us. In doing that, we also adopted a new organizational vision, now our slogan, a better world through a systems approach. We spoke at that time about moving beyond product-centric systems engineering to be able to address challenges at the enterprise and societal levels. So rather than simply engineering things, can we begin to engineer organizations? Can we address concepts such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Can we address concepts such as Japan's Society 5.0? As we elevate up those levels, the further we get up, the more we have to shift out of that technical comfort zone into the socio zone, into the people zone, and absolutely into the leader zone. So regardless of where you consider yourself, if you're interested in product-centric systems engineering, enterprise-centric, or societal level, we need to embrace our leadership responsibilities. And I want to talk about three primary areas: the power of perspective that we can bring, how we as systems engineers must lead through influence, since we lead from the middle of the pack, and then understanding unique points of leverage that we bring from our principles and our processes that sometimes we overlook and others never see. I'm going to begin by talking about the power of perspective because, well, as systems engineers, we talk about perspective all the time. I just want to talk about it from a leadership perspective. So we need to recognize that what we're doing is we're trying to enhance shared understanding across this multidisciplinary project team. We're very comfortable with working with various types of engineers, mechanical, electrical, software, all the other subject matter experts, verification, production, and as Dr. Sue said, systems engineers and program managers working together to achieve these goals. We have to look beyond the technical experts to those that we serve, the customers, the users, not in the laboratory design context, but in their field context. What's going on the battlefield? What's going on in the operating room? The business value that we're trying to deliver, all the various stakeholders. And as we go further up the chain into enterprise and societal, then we get into the so-called pestle factors, including political, economic, social, environmental, and legal. Speaking to Washington metro area, you guys understand the pestle factors, particularly political, far better than anyone else. But the key here is what I call the big E word. And I'm asking engineers to actually embrace empathy. It's not enough to bring these individual voices to the table. To really elicit their input and begin to connect them requires that we have empathy for the concerns that they have and the insights that they bring. If we don't, then we cannot unlock that collective understanding. Now, going a little bit deeper, what are we doing when we're unlocking collective understanding? We're combining two different forms of thinking vertically and thinking horizontally. If you've seen the various models, we can talk about the I model, which is going deep in a particular discipline, which is the way Western education has traditionally developed us. We get deeper and deeper into narrower and narrower areas, and that allows us to make many of the advances that we have. And then we talk about systems engineers being T individuals. We're deep in a particular area, but we can think broad across the problem space, across the solution space, etc., through life. And we may talk about a pie-shaped individual where we have two deep prongs in that transdisciplinary space. Well, as things become more complex, particularly as we move up into the enterprise and societal levels, it's not T, it's not pie, it's comb, where those various legs are very, very different. And so what we have to do as systems engineers and as leaders is to help the team see further together. In many ways, systems engineering is based upon the idea that the collective intelligence of the many is greater than the singular intelligence of one. And that's only true if collective intelligence is unlocked. So we have to use empathy to unlock diversity of perspective of thought, to be inclusive in that, to think across their concerns, to think about through life. And in doing so, it's not just thinking with other engineers, it's thinking with Barbara, as you asked, does empathy relate to user needs? Yes, we need to actually understand what that user is going through, the value that they're seeking in the context that we're operating in, to understand their needs. If we don't understand the world that they're operating in and their values, if we don't empathize with what they're feeling, it's going to be very, very hard for us to actually satisfy their need. And so we have to empathize with the non-technical. We have to empathize with the socio. We have to connect all those perspectives if we're going to unlock collective intelligence. Now, let me give you a couple tactics here, or let me warn you about something first before I give you a couple tactics. If we're going to help that team achieve shared understanding, that's a communication problem. Well, to understand communication, we have to understand that the challenge of communication is a problem in two parts, and it's a two-party problem. It is a sender and a receiver. And let's break it down right now to this example. I'm currently sending ideas. You're receiving ideas. So it sounds pretty simple, right? But let's see how this can go wrong. As a sender, I'm basing everything I communicate on my lifetime of experiences, my 30 plus years in Vitech, in INCOSE, what all has happened. I'm coming from a particular role today. I'm coming from a speaker, I'm coming from a TLI coach, I'm coming from an INCOSE leadership. I've got a particular mindset in the moment. How am I feeling? Did I have a fight with my spouse earlier? Am I distracted by some of the disruptions that are going on in Washington? Regardless of how good I am, I cannot encode my ideas perfectly. I have an idea of what's going through my head, but then it has to translate from the words that come out of my mouth. Regardless of how good I am or am not, I'm not perfect. I know what I mean to say. I've got a deep background of knowledge, but that knowledge can blind me to what you know. And then we're only so proficient in writing, only so proficient in speaking. The English language is context sensitive. The same word can mean different things in different contexts. And by the way, we only have so much time to communicate. Sounds pretty easy, right? Well, then let's look at the other part of the other party here. As the receiver, you've got a different set of experiences. Even if you've got 30 plus years in systems engineering, your 30 years are different than my 30 years. You're in a different role. You're in a receive mode right now in a chapter event, and you may have just come out of commuting traffic. You may have a child at home looking to do homework, and you may be distracted with that. So you've got a different mindset at a different time. You're decoding my words, and that's not perfect. You don't know what I meant to say. You only hear what I actually said, and you have to deduce my meaning from that. Same context sensitive words, same time pressure. So I convey this because as we're trying to create shared understanding across a team, we have to understand that communication is very difficult. My favorite quote is the one at the very top, Ken Liu. Every act of communication is a miracle of translation, translating the idea from sender to receiver. And by the way, it's more than a two-party problem. As you get into systems engineering, it's multidisciplinary. So it's not just one engineer talking to a different type of engineer. We have different types of engineers in the room, not to mention social scientists, product managers, etc. It's multi-domain, it's multi-organizational, and it is multicultural. So what can we do on this perspective bit? How do we honor the various perspectives and work to achieve shared understanding? How can we connect better as systems engineering leaders? The first is there's an underlying why behind everything that we do as engineers. And that why behind our system is not an engineering decision. It's driven by a business decision or a social decision or a political decision. And so we need to have the empathy to understand that fundamental why. Communication begins with, I was always taught, 2 ears. 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you speak. The ratio is much higher than that. But when we listen, we need to listen not only with our ears, but our eyes for body language, our heart for empathy, and our brain to seek the deeper meaning. So often when we listen, we don't actually listen to hear, we listen to respond, we listen to rebut. We're distracted by an email that just came in, or our mind drifts about something else. So we're not present in the moment. We begin to judge and we know what's going to be said as opposed to waiting and hearing what is said. We want to focus on the rational, so we focus only on the words. We lose the tonality and the emotion and the passion. And you've got to be really careful reading body language, but you should always look for cultural context and cues. I've had the opportunity to work with organizations around the world. And one of the things that I learned very early was if I'm in a meeting in South Korea and my colleagues in South Korea are saying yes, 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 or in Japan, hi, hi, hi. As an English speaker who may be unaware of cultural conventions, that sounds like agreement. It's not agreement at all. It's acknowledgement that you're being heard. It's the equivalent of nodding your head to just keep encouraging the speaker. It's not agreement with what they say at all. So you've got to be aware of these things. When you are seeking to connect, first connect by listening and be a full body listener. Then, as you communicate, demonstrate consultation. And what you're trying to do is engage with the other party, but you have to do it on their terms, which means don't bring out your fancy SysML tool unless you're talking to another systems engineer. Use rich pictures, use sketches, use notations that they'll understand because you're trying to get them to engage in the dialogue. Consultation and seeking their engagement is the only way you get permission to interact and connect them. You have to be a party to the dialogue. You have to be above the dialogue to watch the interactions and the miscommunications and the conflicts. And you need to be reflecting upon why are things moving in the direction that where they're going? Why are impasses occurring? And the last thing that I'll tell you on the power of perspectives as a systems engineering leader is be humble, okay? Practice humility. We are there as the transdisciplinary connective tissue. Yes, we have value and insight to bring, subject matter expertise, problem expertise, etc. But we don't know everything. And if we are arrogant, we shut people down rather than inviting their diversity of thought and insights. Ask more questions, make fewer statements. Covey, seek to understand before you seek to be understood. And empathy, see through their eyes, not the way that you would perceive it. Now, I've spent a lot of time on perspective because I think it's really, really important. If you get into the power of perspective, I'll recommend that you look up this paper by Gary Koyan. I can give you a copy if you'd like. He talks about the 5 perceptual positions: self, which is how you see things yourself, how you bring value to the team; other, seen through their eyes. We're trying to connect people. Third position is objective observer, so that you can see people with their interests and their needs interacting. Fourth position is context. Context is very important as systems engineers. And fifth is a personal observer. But use the power of perspective, not just the technical perspectives that we're used to in systems engineering, but the perspectives in diversity of thought to achieve shared understanding. Now, in doing that, we have to exert leadership. But as I said, it is not leadership from the front. It's leadership through influence, leadership for the middle of the pack. So I'm going to go back to the way I sketched those models, the I, the T, the pi, the comb earlier. And I'm going to ask a bit of a rhetorical question. Does it matter how we position ourselves? If we're seeking to lead, Does it matter if we put that transdisciplinary bar at the top, in the middle, or at the bottom? And I would argue absolutely yes. Most often we put the transdisciplinary bar at the top. Most often we draw the systems engineer at the top of the engineering organization or at the top of the technical side of the project team. What we do unintentionally is signal that we're more important than anybody else. If you ever wonder why other engineers don't like systems engineers, that's one of the reasons. We accidentally signal that we are better than them. So drawing that bar at the top actually reinforces that, which I don't think helps us. So, okay, don't draw it at the top, draw it at the bottom. That's not quite right either. That's where a service function goes. And that's not quite right either. I think we're trying to honor both vertical and horizontal thinking. Put that connective bar right down the middle and signal that we're all on an even playing field. What we're trying to do is enhance comprehension, communication, coordination, cooperation, collaboration, continuity, and be a catalyst for change. So position yourself properly, lead from the middle of the pack. Now, in doing so, it requires that we use a different style of leadership. We have to lead inward to the project team, outward to the customer, upward to our organizational management, but we don't often have any of these powers that we're talking about. I hope you're not relying upon physical power. You might have resource power in terms of having something that somebody else wants. You probably have expert power in the field of systems engineering, but likely not everything required for your system. You might have an overwhelming personality, but what we do have is the opportunity to lead by influence, having that effect on someone else through the service that we bring, by the way that we engage with them, by the way that we help people see the big picture, leading through influence, leading through service. Now, in doing that, we need to recognize that as engineers, we often think that people are convinced by facts and figures. That's what we've been taught throughout a career. But if you've ever listened to Simon Sinek, Golden Circle of Communication, Begin with Why, all those concepts, talking about facts and figures appeals to the newest part of the brain and does not inspire action. That's not where we make decisions. We make decisions actually in the oldest part of the brain, the limbic system, and then we rationalize it with the newest part of the brain. If you go back to the Greeks, those are the concepts of ethos, credibility, pathos, emotion, and logos, logic, and all being in harmony. What this means is if you're trying to influence others, you need to be in touch with what their interests and desires are, empathy, how they're feeling, and how you want them to feel so that you can inspire that action, inspire that motivation and belief. So a couple points if you're going to lead from the middle of the pack. And this can be if you're leading fellow team members, leading customers, or leading upward to the C-suite. As systems engineers, that unique value that we bring is helping people see things holistically, highlighting the holistic problem, the holistic context, the holistic through life perspective. We then want to make sure that everybody is feeling valued, that their perspectives are feeling valued, that their contribution is feeling valued, honor and leverage that diversity of thought so that the team moves it as one, okay? Now, in doing so, inevitably, there's going to be conflict because we're working in the complex space. We're not optimizing any one concern. We're sub-optimizing all individual concerns to get to the right system level answer. To do that, we have to avoid positional conflict and instead understand what is your underlying interest. What are you trying to maximize? What are you trying to make sure we address? What is your fundamental concern? Get away from positional conflict because that's how we have deadlock. Interest-based conflict you have a chance to address. We want to make sure as we lead that we're helping people understand the interconnectedness, the interactions, the complexity, the through life picture, the risk of unintended consequences. Why do we want to invest time up front to properly understand? But don't scare people. Scaring people is counterproductive over the long time. And then ultimately, we need to seek elegance over brute force. Elegant solutions resolve complex problems. Brute force, it's a local win, it's a global loss. Okay. Let me give you a number of points of leverage that you have as a systems engineer that sometimes you overlook and that others aren't necessarily aware of. So first off is, again, empathy, user needs, making sure that we define the right problem right the first time through. Spend that time up front beyond analyzing the requirements that we've been given to make sure that we have engaged stakeholders in their context to understand what their interests, what their needs are. Think over time, who's going to use the system, how the system needs to evolve, how the world will evolve while that system is being used, how the perception of value is going to change over time. Let's try to get as good an understanding up front as we can. And then do as is and hope to be analysis. What's the gap? Sunny day scenario when everything goes right, rainy day scenario when things go wrong. And then elicit the assumptions that all of us are making about the world and try to agree upon which assumptions we're willing to make and which assumptions actually are bad assumptions and invalid. So define the right problem right. That's something that's core to us as systems engineers. In defining the right problem, we also then have to define what does success look like. In the language of ACOF, we far more often fail validation and pass verification. We fail more often because we solve the wrong problem than because we get the wrong solution to the right problem. That means defining the right problem right up front, and it means defining what goodness looks like. Don't rush into the solution space. Think problem space as long as you can. Those are two leverage points that you have. A third that you may not think of very often is you need to think across time. As a systems engineer, you're a life cycle thinker. You have a definition here from INCOSE, engineering discipline, responsibility, creating and executing an interdisciplinary process, blah, 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 throughout a system's entire life cycle. The image on the right here is from a news story published in the Los Angeles Times in 2022. And what was happening in 2022 is the California landfills were being filled up with solar panels as they reached their end of life. They were at the end of a 20 or 30 year life cycle. 20 to 30 years before that, California had put notable incentives in place for rooftop solar. Great. They moved a lot of people into that, but they failed to think about disposal. They failed to think about the fact that those panels contain toxic materials that cannot be processed in the state of California. In fact, there are only 1 or 2 facilities in Arizona that can decommission and disassemble and recycle those panels. So a tremendous local success for about 30 years on green energy that created a different form of pollution. As you think about your project through life, where are your solar panels at disposal? What are your unintended consequences? Think across time and identify where those potential flaws are so that you can maximize value across time. Think across complexity. Recognize, as a systems engineer, hopefully you're familiar with the Cynefin framework to say some problems are simple. We know the relationship between cause and effect, assembly line problems, really. Some are complicated. Cause and effect requires an analysis, but you can tell what the relationship is. We do some systems engineering in that space. We do a lot of it in the complex space, where we actually only know the full phenomenology, the full relationship between cause and effect afterwards. You've got a different toolkit between sense, analyze, and respond, and probe, sense, respond, depending upon if you're complicated or complex. Lead your team to use the right analysis in the right stage of the project to generate the right results. And absolute last thing here, think across scale. We like to say everything's a system. So I can work at the micro level, say it's an electric vehicle. I can work at the macro level, the charging station, the electrical vehicle, and the electric supply. Or I can look at the global level, where the EV is part of mobility as a service, along with metro, bus, etc. Okay, think across scale. But the reality is the system tools, while the concepts may be the same, the tools are slightly different. At the macro level, we think about interfaces. At the macro level, we think about interactions between pieces. And at the global level, we think about all the interested communities, all the stakeholders, all the suppliers, etc., that we have to deal with. Which means, by the way, the further you get up that chain, the more you have to become interested in people, policies, politics, and power. So as you're moving across scale, recognize, yes, you're still doing the same principles to understand, the same principles to engineer, but the techniques that you're using move from interfaces to interactions to interests. And people, policy, politics, and power, the 4 Ps, become more important. Last note on leadership, and then I'm going to go into the TLI. Barbara, thinking across the scale, would you start at the global and work down to the micro? It depends on what you're chartered to do. Most often we're chartered, I'll back up on the slide, we're chartered to work at the micro on a particular system of interest. We have to understand the macro and hopefully the global, but we're not going to have a perfect picture of them. If, however, you're sitting in DC and you're doing policy work, you're actually not interested in the micro at all. You're interested only in the macro or the global. So we really have to understand where we are in that continuum and use the right toolkit to analyze at that level to understand above and below us. Okay. Ideally, we would think decompositionally, but the reality is it's a complex space that won't work. So whatever you're chartered to do, center your analysis around that, but recognize where you are in the stack. Thanks, Barbara. So two quotes, and then I'm going to give you the TLI. So if you want to be better as a leader and you're leveraging perspective, influence, and leverage, H.L. Mencken said, for every complex problem, there's an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong. The corollary to that is the Dwight Eisenhower quote, which, Barbara, I think goes to what you were getting at in your question. Whenever I run into a problem I can't solve, I always make it bigger. I can't solve it by making it smaller, only if I make it big enough. Then I can begin to see the outlines of a solution. And the reason that that is true is we see more interconnected pieces, we have more trade space, we have more freedom of motion when we zoom out and really understand the full context. So in a complex world, we need more Eisenhowers and we need to avoid the traps of Lincoln. Now, let me turn the page and talk a little bit about a tool that INCOSE has, an opportunity for those who are interested in their leadership aspects and becoming better technical leaders. And this is about advancing your leadership journey through the INCOSE Technical Leadership Institute. It is a global network. It has a defined initial experience, but then is a lifelong institute. And it's about people coming together to advance their leadership skills. Now, the heart of the Institute, or the origins of the Institute, also date back to 2014, and that Systems Engineering Vision, Vision 2025, A World in Motion. As INCOSE recognized the challenges at product, enterprise, and societal levels, we realized that for systems engineering to have the right impact on the world, we needed more systems-aware leaders. So we started the INCOSE Technical Leadership Institute to develop systems leaders better equipped to deal with complexity at those three levels. Now, those individuals may serve INCOSE, or they may serve their organization, or they may serve society at large. What's critical is that we equip more systems-aware leaders. So individuals can become more capable leaders and join a network. The organizations have non-proprietary and tuition-free technical leadership for their systems engineering leaders. And yes, INCOSE has a growing pool of leaders to draw upon. Many of the current board of directors members have actually been, are actually members of the Technical Leadership Institute. The Leadership Institute now has 161 leaders in 20 countries. We are accepting nominations for members of Cohort 11. It is a completely virtual program now. There are no required costs to you or your organization for participation. It's an investment of time. Now, the TLI is not an MBA. It's not going to compete with that kind of investment. It's not your organization's leadership training program. Your organization has a better leadership training program than INCOSE could ever hope to have. What it is a global network connected by an experiential shared journey that is facilitated by coaches. So in other words, what we have to offer is the opportunity to share and exchange experiences with individuals from other organizations, from other application domains, from other countries, from other cultures. And as we craft some leadership laboratory experiences, so to speak, and give you experiential opportunities, you not only learn together, but you can exchange lessons across cultural and organizational boundaries. That's the unique dimension that INCOSE can bring. Now, it begins with an initial 2-year experience. So let me try to describe that for you in case you're interested. The nomination deadline is 31 March. There is still time. We'll talk about the nomination packet. The TLI then kicks off with what we call a major workshop in June. And that major workshop has 9 hours of plenary content where we explore concepts such as the self-aware leader, leadership through influence, communication, storytelling, complexity, etc. And we have breakout team assignments in there as well. So you're spending 15 hours that week. It's a notable investment. And then in January, we do a second major workshop where we tackle additional topics, but we begin to look outward from self to other to enterprise and to society. We're looking at collaboration. We're looking at shared model building. We're looking at cognitive biases, etc. Now, along the way, every quarter, we have quarterly projects, individual and collaborative. And so what this means is that you will do 8 different individual projects that help you increase your awareness as a leader of yourself, of others, of interactions, of the type of leader you can be and want to be. And you're doing collaborative explorations. You do about 6 of them, which means you have 6 micro experiences of a team of energized, motivated people coming together to take on a project in the systems engineering leadership space and move forward. And so these are learning cycles where you are experientially becoming a better leader. There are major projects that we undertake along the way that are aligned to the interests of the given cohort. And after 2 years, you're inducted as a full member of the Institute, and you can continue to work within the Institute to listen, to think, to learn together, enhancing your leadership skills. Now, there's not a true curriculum. The content of this is ever evolving based upon the skills and knowledge and aspirations that every cohort brings. We adapt to that multi-organization, multicultural cohort. Cohorts are approximately 25 people. We apply, probe, sense, and respond to learn and to build learning loops. And it's all about experiential learning facilitated by coaches. Here are some of the things that the TLI tends to address: self-awareness and growth, because leadership begins with self-mastery, fostering collaboration, empowering these transdisciplinary teams, thinking holistically and strategically. How do you elicit and leverage diverse viewpoints and skills, etc.? So this gives you a sense of what the TLI is exploring, but we also explore contemporary topics. In 2020, during COVID, we undertook a major project on how do you leverage distributed remote collaborative teams. Now, if this starts to sound interesting, as I said, nominations are open. Happy to answer questions here. Nominations must come from an INCOSE leader. That could come from your chapter president. If you're a member of a corporate advisory board, a CAB organization, your CAB rep can nominate you. A technical director, et cetera, in INCOSE can nominate you. Your organization provides a letter of recommendation and support. Basically, that just says we recognize that you're engaging in this initial 2-year experience, and we're willing to support you in doing that. There's no money, there's no travel, but we recognize that you're going to invest your time. You write a personal statement describing why do you want to be part of the Institute? Why do you want to go through this? What are the benefits you expect your organization to have, and you expect INCOSE to gain? And then your resume that highlights your leadership and systems engineering accomplishments. Nominees are evaluated on these criteria. You should have at least 3 years of experience. That gives you enough experience to understand the dialogues. It gives you practical background. 5 or more years is preferred. Most of the individuals who are part of a cohort are between 5 and 10 years of experience. We've had 3 years, but we've also had 30, where we've had somebody who has had a full career in the U.S. Air Force and come to the TLI to both share those insights, but to learn how is leadership enacted outside of the Air Force. They wanted that multi-domain, multicultural aspect. They brought a lot to the cohort in the Institute, and they gained a lot from it. So 5 to 10 years is probably the nominal, but 3 to 30 is really the range. We look for nominees based upon their aptitude in systems engineering and the fact that they have started to exhibit some leadership behaviors. Not necessarily formal. It could be informal on a work study team. It could be church. It could be any number of things. It could be a chapter role. Are they comfortable working in uncertainty? Are they passionate about advancing their technical leadership? And what is their potential? We ask the nominators to identify a specific instance where the candidate has exhibited one of these behaviors that comes from a TLI paper, holding the vision, thinking strategically, fostering collaboration, etc. And then the things that we as a evaluation committee weigh most heavily are the nominating letter, where your nominator says, this is something that I have seen that says they have leadership potential. And then we look heavily at your personal statement, which describes your expected benefits. If you are interested, I'll suggest that you talk to, I'm happy to give you more information today or offline. Talk to Lawanda to nominate you. Talk to, if you're part of the CAB, your CAB rep to nominate you. And there is still time this cycle for cohort 11, or think more about it in cohort 12. So I've taken a lot of our time. We've still got a little bit of time for Q&A. So let's go ahead and shift over to that, whether it's on leadership in the large or the Technical Leadership Institute. Happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Hey, David, this is Gary.
Mhm.
I thank you for sharing all this information about the TLI. I don't know of any other organization that can do a worldwide cohort. That is different, I think, than anything else I've ever seen. Is that your cohort members can be from all around the world. That I think is very unique. Over.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for commenting on that. And I think you're absolutely correct. Again, INCOSE is not going to compete with Booz Allen in their technical development, their technical leadership program. We're not going to compete with UVA in their MBA. But what we can do is we can complement those through this global network. And it is fascinating to have somebody from the aerospace company talking in the US, talking with somebody from Medtronic, the medical industry in the US, alongside someone from Spain and Brazil and Japan and Australia and India. And those cross-organization, cross-geographic, cross-cultural boundaries, they're challenging. They challenge us as individuals because it's a whole lot easier to talk within your organization. But it's also more representative of the world that we live in. We work in a global supply chain, and you get these unique insights. That is the diverse value. Now, I will tell you that it requires some people work odd times at different hours. A lot of times on the East Coast, you may end up with an early morning meeting or a late night meeting, but it's a small price to pay.
One additional comment.
Mhm.
I have never seen anything offered for free, so that is amazing. Over.
Thanks, Gary. And it's coached by volunteer coaches. So I'm one of the two coaches. Actually, there will be 4 coaches for this cohort. I'm one of them. Suja Joseph Malherbe from South Africa is one. You can find our bios on the INCOSE website. We have 2 more coaches coming in. INCOSE then funds the various instruments that we use. We do a leadership personality profile. We do a 360, etc. So yes, all you're required to do is to bring your time. Now, I will say that the more you invest in the program, the more you get out of it. You spend about 80 hours of synchronous time with us in year 1, 40 hours synchronous time in year 2, but then there are many asynchronous hours that you spend working on projects.
Hi, David. I want to say thank you so much. This was an excellent presentation on the earlier part and also the TLI, and I could really resonate, as you can see from the chat, a lot of the things that you were saying early on with INCOSE being, I think, being open-minded and being empathetic and kind of being the middle layer there. I have several experiences with that, and my mentor, Blake Christie, who is retired from Noblesse, on a particular project. So I loved everything. So thank you so much. This was great. I living here in the Washington, D.C. area and everything that's going on, I really appreciate a systems engineering approach. And somebody years ago explained to me that, we can apply it to everything in our life. Systems engineering. And I was like, duh, this is so true. And not to get political, but it's rather frustrating to see some of the things that are going on, and it doesn't seem like a systems engineering approach was applied, and one that could be tailored for efficiency. I don't know if you have any thoughts or want to share anything about that. Just thought I would throw it out there. Thank you.
Yeah. So Barbara, thanks for your kind words. Thanks for the chat messages that prompted me along the way. And it's a great question. So the thing that I wouldn't do is so often, again, it comes across from engineering arrogance and systems engineering arrogance, and we will put the giant SE in our chest and say, we're systems engineers, we're here to help. And that comes across as well as we're from the government, we're here to help. So we often have to be systems engineers under the horizon. We have to go in a bit as a Trojan horse at the enterprise or certainly societal levels. And what we're trying to do here is really that bullet point I've got on highlight, but don't apply scare tactics. We're trying to slowly show people that things are more connected than you think they are. And so we're very comfortable with that in the technical space. You run power through something, well, it's going to throw off heat and it's going to throw off electromagnetic interference. And so you can't just ramp up the power and not have other impacts. We understand that as engineers in the product space. We don't understand that nearly as well at the societal space. So without, like I said, highlighting systems engineering, without highlighting a lot of our language, we've got to help other people come to the realization, if you push over here, it's going to have an impact over here and an impact over here. So before we get too far, too deep, too fast, yes, we have to move. But before we get too dangerous, can we think a little bit about what could the second order effect be? What could the third order effect be? And is that what we want? If so, great. If not, how can we potentially dampen that a little bit? And I think that highlight bullet is the best I can do in terms of help people understand interconnectedness, draw analogies from other things that we've done in the world that, invasive species, etc. Help people think through life. But it's tough, and it's really, really tough until we get more systems aware leaders, not systems engineers, okay, but more systems aware leaders at that table. we're going to continue brute force solutions, and brute force solutions always come with global consequences.
Excellent response. Thank you so much. Totally agree.
Yeah. Thanks, Barbara.
This has been an awesome presentation. David, I really appreciate all that you put into this presentation. It really spans a lot of different areas, as Barbara mentioned. I always say that math is in everything, cooking, travel, everything. It's in everything. And Barbara, you just brought to light that systems engineering is also in everything. So I appreciate it. Please reach out if you're interested in being a part of the next cohort for TLI. Please let me know. Are there any other questions? I see Tika has put a comment in the chat. Did you have anything that you'd like to ask, Tika?
Thank you, President, but I'm good. I really enjoyed the presentation that I just highlighted in the chat, right? The empathy is part of DEI from another angle or another perspective, and really internalizing that in what we do and uphold and practice is completely different than, what we know in theory per se, So I'm just reiterating, on what I chatted. So I really appreciated that highlight and reminding us, David, the relevance and the value of that,
Thank you, Tika. Very, very well said. It's one of those things, just like leadership. We will never master it, but we should always consciously practice it and seek to get better. Very, very well said, Tika. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Hey, Dave, this is Bill. I would like to foot stomp your comment about some of the international impacts of INCOSE, especially since many of us here in WMA are kind of aligned with the government side. One of the great things to me about INCOSE is that we spend, especially in the working groups, dealing with other members from throughout the world. And it's a fascinating part of INCOSE. I think it's a unique part of INCOSE. Where we apply and work with engineering on an international level, and you get to understand that the same problem you're dealing with is handled and dealt with in Australia in an entirely different way than it is in, say, Europe. So thank you.
Yeah.
Good presentation.
Bill, thanks for saying that. And that gives me one, I'll make this my get off the stage comment. Irrespective of the TLI, if you choose to get involved with INCOSE, it is a great way to get very practical experience working with people from other organizations, other cultures, etc. And also, it is a very safe space to develop and further your leadership skills. At least half of the leader I am, I credit to INCOSE. Through the opportunities that I've had, through people that I've worked with, through mentors, formal and informal, through mistakes that I've made, okay? It is a very, very safe space to do those things and to do things that you often can't do in your organization. So if you've got interest, if you have some time, I highly encourage it to complement what you do in your daytime job. Thanks for that opportunity to throw that comment in, Bill.
All right. Thank you again, Dave. We certainly do appreciate all that you've shared, and we will see where we go from here in terms of TLI with all that you've shared. The next item, and I only have 2 slides. The first is to invite you all to think about joining the folks in Canada for the International Symposium that's coming up in July. There's a link, of course, on the main website and ours as well, I believe. Paul can correct me. but it is a wonderful opportunity to be able to rub shoulders and talk to other systems engineers and learn from their experiences, and you share yours. And to close out, just want to kind of foot stomp a few things that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. We do have a new WMA newsletter coming out first quarter. So by the end of the month, you should see our next newsletter. We are planning to start a working group for those that would like to participate in the 2025 GMU Andrew Sage Systems Engineering Research Competition. We are planning jointly to offer SEP certification preparation courses starting in Q2, quarter two. And we are engaging with students at Howard University, Morgan State University, and University of Maryland. And as I mentioned before, if there's a committee or something that you've seen or heard tonight that you'd like to join in and help with, we'd love to have you on one of our committees so that we can make WMA all that it can be with your help. Our next meeting is April 9th, 2025, and we will see you then. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.